Hello, everyone. Welcome to our special webinar. My name is Karen Edwards, and I am the director of the Roofing Technology Think Tank. I have to say, we were just blown away by how many people had such an interest in and need for information, and to hear from others around the industry what they are doing in this unprecedented time. It was so fantastic. We said we need to do more. We need to share more of what we're doing with everyone out there. And so today, joining some familiar faces and some new faces, and I'll introduce them in the order that they're going to talk. We have a commercial roofing technology expert with us today, Michelle Boykin from Rackley Roofing, Tennessee. Hi, Michelle. Rackley took their company 100% virtual last week, completely. Nobody in the office, all working remotely, and Michelle is going to tell us how the first week went and how they got where they are today. They are a very innovative technology-focused company. They were the winner of the RT3 Innovator of the Year Award last year. So we really appreciate for Michelle coming today to share with us. Then we'll move on to Ken Kelly of Kelly Roofing out of Naples, Florida. Ken Kelly is our residential roofing expert. He's going to talk about the technologies and issues that he's dealing with and how he's doing it, and in the hopes to help you learn from that. And then Steve Little from KPost Roofing and Waterproofing, our commercial roofing expert. He's going to give us a business and financial perspective and updates on some government programs and share what he's hearing from his manufacturers and just around the country. Anna Anderson is our marketing expert. She has information on opportunities that you could be taking advantage of right now during this time. And then Ryan Groth is our sales expert from Sales Transformation Group. He's going to talk as well, best practices, technologies, and methods. There's a lot of great information. So I see everyone saying hi in the chat box. Please, if you haven't opened it, open your chat box, because that's where the conversations are happening while we're talking. I will be sharing links out there, like I did last week, to resources that the panelists are referencing. And don't feel like you have to try to grab it and write it down, because we do have a master resource document. And at the end of the webinar, I will post a link to that. And that's where we collected all of these resources into one document, so that you'll have that. And hopefully you can refer to that at any time you need. There's some really valuable information out there. Also, because the conferencing has been a little bit challenging lately with everyone using it, when a panelist is not presenting, they're going to turn their camera off and have themselves muted, just like that. Ken disappearing. And then if they do have something to contribute, you'll see them pop back on the screen, and then we'll all be back again for the Q&A session. So if you have questions while we're talking about something, go ahead and put them in the chat box, and I'll grab them and collect them, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So thanks everyone for being here. Michelle, would you please tell everyone about how you went all digital, all in the cloud, and how it's going?
Sure. So for us, for our field staff, nothing really changed. We've been fully virtual now for several years. We use Dataforma, and we use the apps that they provide for that. So our field teams have been, not coming into the office for quite some time. We also use an app called About Time for our time tracking. So, our field staff, it's been business as usual for them. Our office staff was already prepared for the most part to be fully virtual. I think having multiple offices across the state of Tennessee has helped with this. We're used to conducting virtual meetings. Several employees have to travel from office to office. I'm one of those. And so we've kind of already been prepared for that. We've also been utilizing a scorecard system for most of our employees for about 18 months. And most of the software that we use is web-based. So this has actually been a really great way for us to kind of test that out and make sure that we're seeing everything that we need to see. Like I mentioned, we use Dataforma. They have an audit log that you can check to see, what time somebody logged in, what time somebody logged out, how many clicks in the system they have, all that sort of thing. So we use that quite a bit. We made a decision about 18 months ago or so to only purchase laptops for new employees. And then as we need to replace a desktop, we do that with a laptop. just makes life easier and makes this virtual thing happen a lot quicker. And I hate to say that we were fortunate, but we kind of had a test run a couple weeks ago. Tornadoes hit the state of Tennessee really hard, and luckily none of our offices were hit, and none of our employees were affected by it, but we lost power and we lost internet. And so we were running off of cellular hotspots in several of our offices. And so we kind of had a bit of a chaos for that first day, but overall it was business as usual. And so we kind of solved those technical glitches before this happened. So this kind of was an easy transition for us. Once COVID-19 started to really ramp up, our first step was to eliminate the people that were coming in and out of the offices. So anybody that had contact kind of on the outside world coming into the inside, so sales personnel, estimators, inspectors, we said, don't come into the office anymore. And of course, they were already, prepared to work virtually. So that was a very easy step for us to make. It wasn't anything that we really had to worry about. So then, of course, when things kept happening, the next step was to eliminate office staff from the office. And we announced this about lunchtime, the day that we did it. And by 5 p.m., everybody had everything they needed to start working from home the next day. And it went pretty seamlessly. This week has been a pretty good indicator of who really truly has been on board with technology and who hasn't. And it's something that we can see as owners pretty easily. So we've kind of dealt with that one-on-one. But we've tried to keep everybody engaged. We use Slack a lot, thanks to RT3. It's something that we learned when we joined RT3. But we use Slack every day to kind of communicate and keep everybody engaged. We've been discussing our core values. So each day we choose a core value, and we ask everybody to kind of mention an employee that shows one of those core values each day. We use Zoom a lot. We're having Zoom discussions each morning with all of our direct reports. So we're keeping that face-to-face contact happening. And really what we've seen happen is almost better communication than what we had when we were just in the office, because you have to be so intentional. And so it's really helped us with our communications. We've seen a couple of issues that I would call them a challenge, where we've either purposefully kept something old school or where legally it has to be old school. For instance, we send out a handwritten thank you card to every customer of ours when they sign a contract with us. So I just took the thank you cards home with me, and I fill them out here and I send them from my house. The other one is signing paperwork that requires a notary. And thankfully, I'm a notary. So we've kind of gotten a little bit creative where I would normally sign contracts and then have somebody notarize them. We're having Curtis sign all the contracts. And then basically he and I stand 6 feet apart. He's come to my house. I have stopped by the office a couple times, and I'll have him, I'll watch him sign, and then I notarize after the fact. So there's been a couple of glitches like that, but other than that, it's been a pretty seamless thing, and it's just business as usual for us. So, I think that it's helped that we were kind of already on this path, and that we kind of already had things going on. But it's really helping us as owners to see who's passionate about their jobs and who's really putting in the effort. And I think it's definitely going to have an impact on us in the future of who we let work from home and what our office looks like going forward.
Wow, Michelle, thank you. I think those are very good points. This is going to change entire office cultures. If we see that we can do this successfully, it's a great thing. So, Ken, you are up next. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing, seeing.
Yep. Try to make this fast and hard hitting so we can get to the rest of the panels, because they're a lot better at this than I am. But I've split it into 3 main parts: information, business steps, and then we're going to finish out the end with some sales things. And this is specifically for residential. So information's key from where I stand, and where I'm getting my information, first and foremost, I think Trent Cotney, who is also one of the original RT3 board members, is doing a fantastic job. He is littering social media, email campaigns. He's partnering with the NRCA as he's the chief counsel. He is just doing a wonderful job telling us about everything that's coming out of Washington, how we should structure our businesses, what the gotchas are, contract provisions, all those kind of things. And I'm just a huge fan of everything that he's putting out, and I'm following it religiously. Also, my financial advisor is doing really cool webinars throughout the week. He's analyzing the virus, where it's spreading, how it's affecting the markets. And, this isn't for just a personal reason, but for a business reason. It helps me to plan and to know where to put money and how to get ready for when things return back to normal. Also, I think that President Trump's daily briefings are awesome. Whether you like them or not, I feel comfortable knowing from the very top of the country, from the team that he's assembled, to hear directly from those individuals what they're doing and how they're helping us, I think brings a lot of clarity, and I love that transparency. Also, I have a networking group of contractors from around the country and even Canada. There's a contractor at Canada as well. And it seems like every other night we're getting together, and it seems like it's more therapy session in some of those meetings, but at the same time, there's such great ideas. And I have a few of them in here that I'll share today. The NRCA, Roofing Contractor Magazine, the Roofers Coffee Shop, all these organizations. I mean, this is why we have them. This is who's representing our industry. They're giving us great information. Might as well take care of that. And then as an oddball, here's one for you. So I follow a guy on Twitter named Gilbert Ott. He runs God Save the Points, and it's all about a travel blog. And I thought it was really interesting because I did a one-on-one half-hour session with him today. And he says that his airline executives that he speaks with on a regular basis are planning for full operations by May. They should have seats filled by June and 100% back to normal by July. That's what the major airline executives are planning for. And I think that's a good indication, because I think they're like, $500 billion in annual revenue, and that means something. So how I'm communicating this information? Well, I truly believe that as president, it needs to come from me. I need to be the one that's delivering the message to the entire organization. And I saw a Navy SEAL speak just recently named Rourke Denver, and he had this tagline I thought was awesome. It was "Calm is contagious." So my suggestion is be informed, be factual, and be purposeful. If you're going to make a decision, make it. Don't beat around the bush. Your team is looking for leadership at this time, and this is the time for you to shine, as Trent Cotney said today in his webinar. Be there for them. How I'm also communicating is through SMS and voice group messaging. So I have a service called Callfire, and I have all my employees' cell phone numbers logged in there, and I send out little notices to them. I can also record little voicemails, not voicemails, but like voice messages, and I can send that out as well. And it's one of those things where, and emails to follow up as well, but it's one of those things that you're always giving them a little bit of information, because if you go too long, if you go more than 24 hours, then they start maybe hearing something or feeling something, and you want that focus. You want everybody to be on the same page and rowing in the same direction. And the last thing that I do on a regular basis is throughout my day, which, by the way, I'm not even in the same town as my business right now. Talk about working remotely. So what I do instead is I pop in using video, and we have a new slogan. It's "We use video around these parts," right? So if I call somebody on video and they don't have their video on, I just remind them, hey, we use video around these parts, because we still want that personal connection, even though we're having to social distance and work remotely. And the only question I ask is, how are you doing and how can I help? Those are the two questions. That's it. And then from wherever the conversation goes, that's where it goes. And that's my role. I'm there to help and to make sure that everybody knows what's going on and everyone has what they need. So show your team you're a strong leader, work harder than anyone else, be there, pop in on them, make sure that the productivity is high and whatnot. So that's information and communication. Let's move on to business steps that I'm taking. Normally, like Michelle said, the scorecards, big piece of the entrepreneurial operating system, or EOS system. We use them as well. The difference is, instead of looking at them weekly, we're looking at them every single day. I send out a scorecard every morning. It's got all the key metrics on it. It's full transparency to the organization. And the leadership team is constantly talking about trend lines. What are we seeing on a daily basis? What's going on? Some crazy things that we didn't think about. We're going to get into the sales in just a second, but looking at it on a daily basis allowed us to act quickly and take advantage of some opportunities. Also, anyone working remotely is knocked down to part-time, 32 hours a week, maximum 6.4 hours a day. And the reason why is because there is a certain amount of productivity loss. And what I've asked everybody to do is, if you want to work remotely, which is great, we're supporting that. We have all the technology in place with Microsoft Teams and all of our suite of software. Everything is digital and cloud-based. But there's a certain amount of productivity loss, and I don't want to lay off anyone. So the idea is, listen, if everyone just sacrifices 8 hours a week, we can all make sure that our team stays together, and we just know that there's a certain loss of productivity. So this is how we're dealing with it as a company. So we've gotten really good buy-in on it. There's nobody who's balked. So that's helped us also keep our cost under control, given the fact that we are starting to see a little bit of a slowdown in our ability to bring in revenue due to some local municipality issues with inspections and material availability and so forth. So we're starting to feel that, and this is a way to offset it. Toolbox Talks, as soon as Trent Cotney came out and said, hey, this needs to be your safety training meeting, we did it immediately. We got everybody to not only sign in, we took pictures of everyone who attended and to make sure that we have them on that Toolbox Talk so we can prove it. And then we took it a step further as part of Trent Cotney's little infectious disease and COVID-19 business essentials plan. He created a little letter, and we had everybody sign that infectious disease notification, and we're keeping that on file with HR, just so there's no questions, no concerns. We don't want any liabilities, lawsuits, anything like that going forward. Full-time cleaning person in the office, cleans the vehicles, cleans the tools. It is just a constant round robin, from one office to the next, out in the warehouse, into each of the vehicles, and then back in. And that's the full-time job that Adrian's helping us with. I'm completing my SBA loan package. I have no idea how much I'm going to ask for. I don't care at this particular point. I just know that we're going to take advantage of the SBA loan. So I'm submitting my application now. I understand, based on yesterday's press briefing from the White House, it looks like they're going to have this up and running within 2 to 3 weeks, and local banks will be able to process applications and provide funding in the same day. So I'm just making sure my application is in there now so that when it's time, we can go ahead and pull cash as we need it. Like I said, pull all your permits, notice of commencements, anything that's government related, pull that now. Get that in the works, because if your area goes into shutdown, and I understand some states are doing it as a statewide event. In Florida, we're doing it municipality by municipality. I understand that it seems like they're starting to fall now. So what we're trying to do is make sure that, hey, you know what, if we're essential service, if we have the ability to do some work, the last thing I want is for our local municipality to shut us down because we can't get a permit. We're also loading any upcoming jobs. We have about a month's worth of work of loaded projects right now. And not just because we want to take advantage of the remaining days that we have to work, but when things open back up, suppliers are going to be jammed. There's going to be so much pent up demand. I want to have a couple weeks worth of work for our crews to go to. And I've loaded up on inventory in the office as well. I'm also requiring all of our crews to fill up their trucks every night before they come back. That's kind of a hurricane thing that we learned back in Florida, but it's also good because you never know what's going to happen with fuel supply and so forth. So we want all of our vehicles to be ready to go. We're allowing our employees to take personal vehicles to the job sites to ensure social distancing. We're not allowing more than 2 people in any vehicle at any time. Thanks to Anna Anderson from Art Unlimited. She does our marketing, but she's also a great resource. So I reached out and I said, listen, I got people working remotely. What do you suggest for monitoring that work? And she turned me on to a software platform that we just install on any of the devices, iOS, Windows, Android, whatever it happens to be, for $5 per user per month. It gives you fantastic analytics into their productivity so that you can really help manage people. And really what I've been doing is I've just been monitoring that as it's going throughout the day. And if I see someone go into idle, I just reach out to them and say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? A lot of times I catch them on the lunch hour, but it also knows that, they also know that I'm there and I'm trying to keep productivity high. So Our main line to our office has been digital, but we've put it into a queue. So if you have a PBX system or a traditional phone line, I suggest you forward that line to a cloud-based call system, and then do a round robin, designate a few people who are going to be that frontline phone answering service. And this way you always have coverage. The other thing that we did is it required all of our employees, whether they have their cell phones or if they have a cloud-based phone system, if they don't answer within a certain number of rings, it goes to our customer service team, that round robin queue. And this way we know that if someone becomes ill, we don't have to think about it. They're not, well enough to answer phones. We don't expect them to be, but we know that anyone who's calling that phone line immediately goes back to the office or to our queue of people who are working remotely, so we can handle those. We're also able to turn off and on out of office forwarding for emails. So I can pop into that user real quick, go into their Active Directory account, forward their emails, so that we're also getting email communications. Anna also came up with this emergency service pass. I know Steve's going to talk about that, so I'm going to hold off and just skip that. And then I think that this is an amazing hiring opportunity. I think that crews are going to be laid off by companies that can't afford to run them on payroll. I think bartenders make fantastic salespeople because they love to talk to others. They don't mind late hours, and they don't have a drinking problem. So since they're being laid off right now is a great time to bring them on board and invest in the future of your company, especially with our worker shortage. And hospitality workers, those that work in the hotel, for instance, the hotel environments, they make fantastic customer service agents because they understand what it means to take care of people. Now that concludes part 2. Last piece of this puzzle is part 3, residential sales. People are home doing their honey-do list. I mentioned this last time, but I've got a follow-up for you. Most of our estimates, most of the wins that we have right now are from estimates that we gave in the past. So what we did, when we started to see that daily spike with jobs being won based on estimates that were given in the past, we immediately repositioned our sales team, carved out a few hours out of each one of their schedules, and make them now call those past customers to say, hey, I know we submitted an estimate months ago. Have you thought about moving forward with that? And that is actually working extremely well to bring in work. The other thing that I want to mention is there's a lot of people who are skeptical about committing right now. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if they're going to lose their job. Maybe they are furloughed temporarily. Do what the airlines have done. Give them an open-ended pass. Listen, let's go ahead and get it signed up now. When things open back up, we'd love to get the work done. But at any time in between now and the time I order materials or accrue any costs, I'm just going to give you the ability to cancel. Give them that safety net and develop that level of comfort customers, and you'll see that they'll give it right back and they'll give you that work. Also, we launched an ad campaign on TV and radio, both targeted on news channels. So radio would be talk, and then TV would be through the cable networks, specifically for news channels, and then the local newspaper. And then that's helping too, because we know there's a huge spike of consuming media right now, and Anna's going to talk more to that in just a second here. Social has been super strong, although we tend to reserve our social media for more fun type things. Like yesterday's post was a screenshot of all of us doing a meeting remotely where you had all the camera photos on the screen. And you know what, that went over pretty well too. It got some good engagement. Teams and Zoom we use for demos, and FaceTime is great. When you get to the house and you want to show somebody that what you're looking at on the outside, just FaceTime them. They're inside, you're outside, you're keeping that distance, but you're showing them what you're doing. You're working hard for them. So anyways, that's, one last piece. We are securing financing for customers. We have almost made that completely standard. Some of the smaller amounts, not so much, but some of the bigger projects, we're running finance applications on just about everything. And the reason why is because we don't know how people are going to be affected by this financially. So this is actually a Trent Cotney idea. He's got great ideas. Like I said, this is another one. And this secures our payment on the back end to make sure that we get paid when the job is done. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Steve Little. Steve, can't wait to hear what you have to say, buddy.
You know, you did it again. I was sitting here scratching through stuff I'm not going to talk about now. Okay, good stuff. Karen, Ken is frozen, so I just want to make sure that we're still live in our webinar.
We're good. I just turned off my camera. Sorry.
Yes.
Great. We're all good.
We're good.
Okay, so thanks for everybody for joining today. We had a lot of feedback after the webinar last time, and I hope that all of you will put your questions on the chat room, here and go back and pull all of the resources we had from both meetings. I want to support what Ken said about Trent Cotney. I don't know that there's a better resource out in the marketplace that and is working as hard as his company is. If you're not a subscription holder of Ken's, you need to be, and you need to pay attention to this stuff because he is giving some very, very good advice out here in the market. I'm going to touch on a couple of different areas. I'm not going to get deep in any of them. The resources will be on the webinar chat room over here. I want to make a disclaimer here to say that what KPost is doing is not necessarily the right way to do it, but it's the way that we do it, and it's proven successful for us. Also, some of the areas I'm going to talk about in reference to the stimulus package and things that are happening from the IRS and the DOL, I'm asking you to go back and refer to your attorneys and your CPAs for direction on that. One of the first items that will be available to you on this is the shelter-in-place letter that we have given each and every one of our employees. With fewer cars on the road, there are more police officers that are checking vehicles. Ironically, yesterday I got pulled over. I didn't get pulled over for necessarily not sheltering in place. I got pulled over because I was doing 7 miles an hour of the speed limit, which never happens on this particular highway I was on. And the police officer pulled me over, and then he asked me about what I was doing out here. I told him I was in the roofing business. He asked me if I had my letter. I pulled my letter out. I gave it to him, and at the bottom of it, I've signed it. So he wanted to know why I was signing my own letter. I explained I was president of the company. He went back, checked me out, came back, gave me a pass on the 7 miles an hour over, and asked me, did all my employees have this letter? And I said, yes, indeed they do. And we've had a number of our trucks pulled over and our employees checked out. So make sure if you don't have a letter and you're in an area that you're in a shelter in place, that you do put letters in all your trucks. Some of our guys have had their letters laminated by our office as well, because sometimes we'll rotate people through the trucks. Second of all, there'll be a document put on here that is our answer to Manhattan Construction. A number of our general contractors we do business with have been asking for our COVID-19 plans and our mitigation response. And so we have been as general as possible in the answer and as detailed as needed to be in these answers, giving our processes for managing COVID-19 internally as well as externally. And I have an example of that as will be available on the screen. We also have a sign that's on all of our doors, and that is on all of our gates. And it is a sign that's a health assessment for any approved person entering the KPost building. We, as I said in the last webinar, no visitors are allowed in our building, but anybody that is visiting our buildings from our employee standpoint, they are reviewing these, all the signage that's here, and they have to be able to answer the questions. And if they don't, they can't enter the building. And we have a lot of people asking questions of those folks. Every day now, the majority of our crews are reporting to our campus, where more time than often they were reporting to the job sites. We have two very large projects going on right now that we have crews that are still reporting to the job sites. But before they get on the roofs or before they are allowed to come into our campus, they are asked 4 or 5 questions. They're also asked if they've been out of the country, out of the state, traveling, and we do it each and every day. They signed an agreement to begin with on the very first day we did this, and now it's just the check the box type situation. We've also put out a job site and off-site practices, and we've given written instructions of how to manage 6 employees to our supervisors. We have our safety teams going around with thermometers. We're doing spot checks, sporadic checks at job sites with taking temperatures. And ironically, we have clients, at least on the general contractor side, are also checking temperatures on the sites, and then they are sending people home, and we've established a protocol with them to notify us of it so that we can manage them and the folks that they've been around. So that document that we have here on how we're managing the offsite practices and 6 employees is also going to be part of the resources that you have. The next 3 documents that you'll have to work from are in reference to some of the benefit programs that are out there. I've had a number of folks that have called me and said, look, we're cutting benefits and we want to cut overhead. And our company, we're cutting benefits, and one of the benefits we were going to cut was going to be our 401k plan. And I caution them that this is a elective item that you typically do on an annual basis. I've added some documentation in here from SHRM in reference to what you can and can't do on a 401, a safe harbor plan, and then some other information that's on here as well. And then from SHRM's position, on when employees must cut their 401k contributions to steady flow, et cetera. And there's some very good information on here about that. So again, that's another resource for you that's here. Also from SHRM is the IRS DOL Unveil Employee Tax Credits. Very important to understand this, that if you're sending people home because of having the virus, or they're having to work from home because they have kids and they're out of school and those type of things, this information from Stephen Miller through SHRM really spells it out well. It was the best piece of document that I've seen that's out here, and so I've included that in as well as part of the documentation. Finally, I don't typically watch CNN, but I was looking for a summary of what was in the stimulus bill, something that was simple. We've had, although as of this morning, I haven't seen the news this afternoon, it had not been completely passed. The Democrats were still negotiating some things having to do with unemployment. This is a very good outline, very simple, a couple sentences on each one about different benefits that comes from the program. Ken, I heard you say something in reference to the airlines. I was speaking with some American airline executives last night who told me that part of the plan for them to get the money is that they have to start back up and service once a day a city that they serviced on March 1st. And that it was going to be part of the bill that went through. So if indeed by the time we get to Easter, what the president wants to do is resurrect the country during that time period, and all the medical folks agree, and that's what we're supposed to do. If the airlines indeed take money, what's supposedly written in this bill is that they're going to have to start servicing each of the cities that they had serviced before. I talked before about investing in your business. I want to echo what Ken was saying. This is really a great time to look at good people. I've had 3 Zoom interviews with folks that have either been laid off or were looking to change or move to another company in the last 3 or 4 days. Staying in touch with your employees and being visible through Zoom, through GoToMeeting, through FaceTime, through Facebook portal. Absolutely, your employees want to see you, they want to talk to you, they want that interaction. But more importantly, stay in touch with your clients. Stay in touch with your clients and reaching out and touch them from senior manager to senior manager. Many of our clients, even though construction is an essential business, their offices are closed and they're working remotely. And they want to know what's going on in the marketplace as well. And we have boots on the ground. So they may be talking to their teams virtually, but be able to talk to some key subcontractors as well is very, very important. And that's my report. I believe we're passing it to Anna.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. Great information. So I was chatting back and forth with Ken, and then Steve did it again, backed up a lot of the information I was going to talk about. As I've talked to contractors across the country, my phone and email have been literally buzzing. The one resounding thing that I am hearing is not all of your consumers are aware you are an essential business. In some areas, it is slightly fuzzy. Even law enforcement didn't have full awareness in some locations that the roofing contractors were essential. So they were sending them back home, especially if they didn't have that right paperwork. So definitely tap into some of those resources earlier shared. But if your consumer doesn't know that you're an essential business, that's a problem. They might have a leak and they need it fixed, and you can deliver the service to solve those problems. So make sure your marketing message is updated to reflect that you are an essential business. Put a banner on your website, post on social media. If you can, I would highly recommend some type of letter from the owner. Ken referenced that he did official letters and information, especially to his team, and I know Steve has done this as well, but what is that official letter to your customers? Make sure that has been shared on social media, it's posted to your website, and also if you have the ability, maybe shoot a private video that's sent out to your customers, especially in the commercial market. As Steve pointed out, they want to know, those boots on the ground, what is really happening, because they are working remote. So just some great information to stay connected to your customers, because they want to know what you're experiencing, because they simply don't. Big changes are happening in Google and Yelp. For once, they actually agree on something. And they both, as of Friday, said that they are going to hold back reviews and not allow them to auto-publish. We were seeing earlier last week where roofing contractors in essential service areas were going out, conducting their business, but consumers were leaving them bad reviews and saying, why are you out doing business? You're not in compliance with CDC regulation, when in fact they were. This was elevated high enough that Google and Yelp both stated all reviews are held back in the queue until further notice. I just again checked before the webinar Google's open policy on that, and they said yes, they're held back until further notice. And that will allow you to say, hey, these reviews that are in my queue are not valid due to these circumstances. So that's a great opportunity for you to make sure that your review rating stays high. Again, that is both for Google and Yelp. I talked a little bit about this last time, and Ken alluded to it as far as TV marketing. We are seeing massive opportunity in TV and radio. If you have not marketed on TV and radio, it is pretty expensive. So now might not be the time to dive in, but if you are doing TV and radio, renegotiate those contracts. We have been able to secure massive reductions in the overall cost of their advertising contracts that clients are spending. And or if you aren't seeing a reduction of the contract amount, we have gotten half to double the exposure for some of our clients in some of the markets. So really look critically at your radio and TV media buys, because people are dropping out like flies and they are really wanting to fill those spots. Hiring, we were just actually talking about this in a meeting prior to the webinar today. So many people are pulling back, and so the same thing is happening in Indeed, that's happening in Google and multiple other platforms. You can post job offers and reach multitude of different people who are looking for jobs. So if you are saying, you know, in the long term, you're going to want to hire somebody for a very specific skill set, now is the time to start posting those ads, get that information out there, because the individuals who are searching are much more engaged and they're looking for a new career path. So that's critical. And the one big thing that I have seen across the board is companies that are thinking outside of the box are winning big. So we have some companies who are doing personal touches, where they're doing deliveries to some of their customers as they're going out and doing that contactless or virtual inspection. Those customers are ecstatic. They're so thankful. You know, so what are those connections that you would be able to help facilitate? Consider that obviously in full compliance with CDC guidelines. But little campaigns like that have been popping up across the board. Our team has been supporting them, and we've seen great opportunity has been growing off of that. But in times like this, the one thing that I think as business owners we should all be aware of is when you look at your portfolio of where your leads are coming in from, you should never have one lead source that is over 20%. Unhealthy balance in your lead sources is going to be brought to high forefront in today's economy. So making sure that your lead portfolio is diversified is essential. So again, 20% is the maximum lead source that we recommend. Obviously, referrals and repeat business is a big portion of a lot of companies' lead sources, but just think about that when you look at your portfolio. So those are some of my tips. It's changing really fast out there, so marketing is really hot. Ryan, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody else. Wonderful information. So my name is Ryan Groth, founder of Sales Transformation Group. I will be talking about sales and give you guys a little bit of a report of what I'm seeing. I have a community of contractors who are building high-performing sales teams, and I've been gathering their feedback, gathering some information on how things are going on, how they're responding, what adjustments they're making. So I'm going to give you some of those tips right now. First thing is market response. Thankfully, most, if not all of you, are essential business, and if you put in the exemption, you've applied, you should have gotten something back quickly. Those in Pennsylvania have received those letters. I've seen them. So like Steve said, carry them around, but that is awesome news. What does that mean? Well, first off, you need to be touching your clients and scrubbing your pipeline. There are some companies who have seen a spike in service sales, repairs, and maintenance agreements because they're saying, hey, the projects we want to put on hold, can we do the repair? Also, we are seeing some projects being put on hold. That's happening. So with that being said, to the degree I'm seeing, though, of contracts not signing, on the other side, there's contracts that are signing because of the way that the schools are being shut down. So schools are going. Real estate agents are eager to get deals done because they're afraid of what's about to happen. So they want to get things moving. So make sure you're scrubbing your pipeline and you're thinking about what the end user, the building or the home, what it's being used for. So commercial is going to be a little bit different. Be strategic. But what I'm finding is those who are scrubbing their pipeline are getting that going. So I want to make sure that we touch on that. If you don't have a service department, you're not thinking service minded with repairs in your local market, you need to start because now is the time. It's probably a little too late, but it's never too late if you execute it the right way and you have a good leadership structure and you're fulfilling and you're all in on service. Also, adjusters are not wanting to meet with the contractors. So make sure that you're prepping the homeowner effectively, make sure that you're doing things to be proactive in that so that you're not subject and things are getting delayed as you all would fear. Also, for sales leaders, I'm finding that if you manage a remote sales team properly, their productivity is going up. One of the biggest issues I see all the time is in the office, everybody is talking, it's loud, you don't want to make a call because you hear somebody else talking, or the sales manager is struggling to actually be efficient and get things done because everyone's in and out of their office. With this, it's like Michelle said, makes you intentional about communicating and holding people accountable. So you should be doing the 7 to 10 minute morning huddle and perhaps even a one to wrap up the day at the end with objective numbers, and it should be short and punchy. Also, when you have sales teams, many of them are saying, man, I'm new to this whole Zoom thing and I'm new to all this. What you need to do is have your salespeople rotate on setting up those huddles so that you force them to conduct the meeting. In fact, you should ask them to run the meeting and give them a format. And essentially, you're looking at everybody starting to run meetings. If they can't run a sales meeting, a 7-minute huddle, they're probably not going to be able to sell a commercial project over the phone, right? So make sure you start to empower them in this new environment, make sure you're measuring and you're tracking, make sure you're holding them accountable. And that's going to be important. Like Ken said, hold them accountable to high productivity. That's wonderful insight for how he's handling his employees, the part-time. Nonetheless, salespeople, some of them are all 1099, things like that. Some of them are commercial and they're more employee-based. It all depends on your setup. Nonetheless, hold them accountable. Secondly, prospecting. I'm hearing people saying, well, this vertical market is getting a little difficult. We're scratching and clawing here. Or we can't door knock anymore because people are like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you knocking on my door? That's so insensitive, all of this. So what's happening is people are trying to pivot and move to social media. I got companies that have 35 sales reps that are knocking the doors throughout multiple cities, and they're having to pivot, right? That's just the way it is right now. That's good news if you know what to do. The problem is everybody else is doing it too. So if you don't have the right messaging, if you don't have the right tonality, you're not differentiating, you're going to look like everyone else. So it's really, really important that you format your messaging, you have a syntax of your positioning statements, you're building incredible rapport with them because you're personalizing your video messaging. I have a video messaging document that I wrote today of how to personalize your video prospecting. It shows a step-by-step tool on how they can differentiate. I can promise you when you have the same message and it's not applicable and you're looking at it on your LinkedIn, you're like, what is this mess? This guy, I'm not responding. Guess what? Everybody's doing that. They already have been doing that. So if you want to be different, other than touching your current clients, right? Scrubbing your existing pipeline. I love what Ken said. the deals that are already on the street, they made more time to follow up and close those deals. That should be habit anyway. And I'm glad that's happening now, and that's happening in your favor if you're doing that. Hold them accountable, working virtually, empower them to do the sales meetings so everybody gets a touch and a feel for how to function in this environment. Also, many companies are saying, I want to train right now. This is the time to sharpen my saw. This is the time to really improve, because we're not selling value, or we're not really know how to qualify, or we don't ask the right questions. We're just used to going up there and looking at a problem, giving a price. The whole landscape is changing now. There's a whole different approach. So you need to really be training your team. You need to focus on coaching them. So sales leaders, continue to invest in them, keep them engaged, and focus on that. I've put together that document that shows how to set up what I call Loom or Vidyard, how to structure your messaging, how to put that together. I want to see you guys doing that. Differentiate, differentiate, differentiate. If you're just doing text, you're just like everybody else. And then if you're doing video and other people are doing video and your messaging's poor, you're not going to strike a nerve. You're not going to feel, they're not going to feel like you really know them, understand them, or took the time to even care. However, don't be such an analysis paralysis and making sure things are perfect that you don't get any volume either. So it's about taking massive action with the right amount of precision, with the right amount of focus, in the right environments, and just stay focused. So I'm telling you guys, to the degree of what you're seeing put-offs, we're also seeing accelerations. Okay, so make sure that you're taking the time to do that. I have 3 documents now, before including the 2 from last week that are still very relevant, and the one that I just made this week that are in the master file. Use them, implement them, and I hope you guys get great results. So it's an opportune time. Those who are pivoting are going to make a huge impact and a huge difference, but don't be like everybody else. Differentiate, be that purple cow. So that is all I have. I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, so panelists, turn on your cameras. We're going to open up for some Q&A. Everybody on the webinar, I am going to post a link right now to the master resource document. That has all the documents and resources that were talked about today, as well as the ones from last week's webinar. If you missed last week's webinar, then you can watch that on the RT3 Think Tank website, rt3thinktank.com. Go to our blog, and you'll see it posted there. Most of the questions, you guys were great with putting your questions in the chat, and our panelists were great responding to you. I just have one that I don't think had an answer, and Anna, this is probably yours, to speak about a good and innovative referral program to use during these times to generate some leads.
As far as lead generation, I didn't mention, but I appreciate Ryan talking about just that door-to-door, stay away from that. Being active on social media, we're seeing massive opportunities in social media. That owner's message, boost it, share it, have your team share it, get that out there, be empathetic, and reach out to some of your old prospects and connect with them socially. I second everything Ryan said on that, because there's usually, again, a lot of money left on the table, and this is the time to go back because not everybody has made decisions. Creating some great content on social media. Be yourself. A lot of people don't take time to share who they are, their core values, what they're doing. Build up the company culture socially. That's another great opportunity.
There's a question about from Rebecca about what kind of personal touches would you suggest? I guess that's, you know, Michelle, you said you still do handwritten thank yous. If anybody has anything to add on personal touch.
We've had our sales team just kind of reaching out to their clients and just saying, hey, we're here for you. I think Ken mentioned that as well. I think it's just important to make sure that you're keeping the lines of communication open. We do thank you cards. We've always done that. Social media, that's definitely a way to reach out, but I would also say, you know, email, phone calls, text, whatever form of communication you're used to using with that customer other than face-to-face, do.
There's a question from Taylor in Austin, Texas, that roofing is not called out as an essential business in Austin. And it sounds like other places, other cities, contractors have the ability to submit a form to the city in order to get either a letter or determined that roofing is not essential. So Steve, Ken, maybe one of you could speak to that. Steve, you look like you've got something.
Well, roofing is not called out. In fact, in many of the service sectors, it says plumbing or it says HVAC or electrical, but under residential and commercial construction is where we fall. Ken?
Yeah, I want to add on that. Trent Cotney had a great way of breaking this down, and he said it's pretty clear that if it's exterior and could be postponed because it's more aesthetics, like a roof replacement, where you're taking off a roof, put a new one on. If you're not in the middle of the project, there's not a threat of water intrusion. They're probably going to be frowned on that. If it's an emergency, if it's a leak, if it's damaging the inside of the building, it's preventing the building, especially in a essential service building like a hospital or pharmacy or something like that, you will be able to work. You just have to explain what you're doing and why. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the re-roofs and probably new construction will be shut down unless it would cause further damages to either residential or commercial buildings.
We're not having any problem with the new construction side here in the DFW Metroplex. There was a little pushback in the beginning of downtown projects, but outside the downtown area of both Fort Worth and Dallas, we haven't had any issues.
Okay.
I was on a call with Roofer's Coffee Shop this morning, and Trent Cotney was on there talking about this specific item. And Cotney Construction has if you've got a subscription with them, it's included, but they have some documents that you can get. One is state specific. I think it's like $300. But then if you want the letter, I think it's $100. So something to check out with Trent Cotney and see if it's something available in your area.
There's a question from Drew, and he wants to know if approved insurance work would be considered necessary to be done. I would think so, because it's repairing damage.
Yes.
Probably something to, yeah. Now, Tommy said if you guys are, this just came into us, that he's in Maryland, Virginia, and the DC area, and they submitted a group letter through their local roofing contractors association to the governor's office, and it was a group voice from an industry rather than individually, and it generated a response. Hopefully, Tommy, that was a positive response. You didn't say what that was. So Dustin wants to know where, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, Reed Ribble said on yesterday's call that he had submitted something from the NRCA directly to the White House, and they were looking to either be included or to get more clarification as to which part of the roofing industry would be considered essential. And he listed the tornadoes that recently came through Michelle's area as a prime example of where we would be an essential service. So probably more clarification coming soon.
Thanks, Ken. Dustin wanted to know where or who do you get essential business letters from in Texas? Michelle, you just mentioned Trent Cotney's firm. I know they do practice in Texas, and he mentioned he's got a package. If you're, like you said, if you're on his subscription plan, you get it. But if I think he said it was $300 for this package that includes everything you need. And his website is cotneycl.com. I'll drop it. Actually, he's in there. The master document, because he was on our first webinar. We'll probably have him back again for our next one, but his contact information is in that document as well. Okay, let me see what else is going on here in the chat.
Hey, can I point out what Roger White just said? How cool and creative that is to ship things directly to the home.
Yeah,
like bread houses. That's pretty cool.
Way to go, Rackley employees. What can I say? We're innovative.
That's awesome. Okay, so our cat in Texas submitted some letters to Governor Abbott for our Austin person. Oh, there's Michelle. Okay, and Trent's website. Awesome. I don't see any other questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to post this recording on our website. So you can share that with anyone who you think this would be of value to, who was not able to attend today, and look for an announcement from us for future webinars. We have your contact information, and we'll send you a link. Ryan, do you have something to say?
Yes. Also, subscribe to the RT3 podcast. We are also putting these recordings up to the podcast. So as you're driving, you're not trying to look at a YouTube video while you're driving, you could still listen. And join the Roofing Technology Innovators group, please, on Facebook. That's an open group. You got to be in roofing. You got to answer the questions. We'll let you in. That's also a great community builder for all the members and those who are interested in staying connected to RT3. So we'd love to build the community and have you guys join us. It's a great group, great organization. Thanks for being a part of this.
Hey, Karen,
quick question.
Rebecca Stanley's asking, and maybe Ken can answer this. How are you handling adjusters that don't want to meet?
Yeah, so we're treating them like we would a remote demo. So we're going out to the site, we're doing our inspection, we're recording that on a video, and then we do a Teams or a Zoom meeting and play back that video while we're talking through what we saw when we were on site.
Excellent.
Question about getting a letter for California roofing contractors. I'm not sure if that question is looking for the essential services letter. That, again, I would reach out to Transfirm. They can help you there. Thank you for all the thank yous. Just making sure. Oh, the Facebook group again. It's Roofing Technology Innovators. Ryan just posted a link. That's an open group. Great place to collaborate and share information.
The folks at ABC,
right,
Associated Building and Contractors, abc.org, if you go there, they've got some great webinars that they've recorded that work from a lot of the new construction side of the business. Great panelists from general contractors and subcontractors working together, so that's another good resource.
The resources that I posted, they break down the new laws and make it really easy to understand. One of them was over 1,000 pages long, so this cuts through all that and gives you what you need to know. So there's some documents in there for you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good luck. Be safe.
Thank you. Bye.